After 9 years of running this company flawlessly, my CEO fired me for his nephew. 3 months later, production collapsed, clients fled, and the same CEO was on his knees, begging me to come back. My name is Samantha Reed. I'm 34 years old, single mother to my 7-year-old son Ethan, and for 9 years I was operations manager at Riverside Manufacturing Company in Portland, Oregon. Riverside makes industrial equipment components, precision parts for machinery used in construction, aerospace, and automotive manufacturing. It's not glamorous work, but it's critical. When our parts fail, entire production lines shut down. I started at Riverside right out of college as a production coordinator. Within 3 years, I was assistant operations manager. By year 6, I was running the entire operation, managing 150 employees, overseeing 3 production facilities, coordinating with suppliers and clients. I was good at my job, more than good. Under my management, our on-time delivery rate was 98%. Our defect rate was under 1%. We'd never missed a major deadline. I knew every machine, every process, every potential bottleneck. I knew which suppliers were reliable and which required constant monitoring. I knew which clients needed hand-holding and which just wanted results. Manufacturing operations is part logistics, part psychology, part crisis management. You need technical knowledge, people skills, and the ability to make fast decisions under pressure. I had all 3. George Mitchell, our CEO, had told me repeatedly I was invaluable. "Samantha, this company runs because of you. I don't know what we'd do without you." He was about to find out. The trouble started when Brandon Mitchell, George's nephew, graduated from college. Brandon was 27, fresh out of business school with mediocre grades and 0 work experience. He'd spent college partying and using his uncle's money to fund a lifestyle he hadn't earned. George hired him as a management trainee and asked me to show him the ropes. "Samantha, Brandon's family. I want him to learn the business from the ground up. Can you mentor him?" "Of course." I should have said no. Brandon showed up his first day in expensive clothes completely inappropriate for a manufacturing floor. He refused to wear safety equipment because it messed up his hair. He spent more time on his phone than paying attention to training. When I explained production schedules, his eyes glazed over. When I walked him through quality control processes, he asked, "Can't we just hire people to do this?" "Brandon, you need to understand these processes to manage them effectively." "My uncle's the CEO. I don't think I need to understand the technical stuff. That's what employees are for." That attitude told me everything I needed to know. Over the next 6 months, I tried to train him. I really did. I assigned him to shadow different departments. I gave him small projects to build his skills. I provided feedback. Nothing worked. Brandon had 0 interest in learning. He wanted the title and salary without doing the work. But he was charming. He knew how to schmooze. He'd have lunch with George regularly, telling him about ideas for improving efficiency that were either impossible or stupid. George ate it up. "Brandon's really showing initiative. He's got fresh perspectives." Those fresh perspectives included suggestions like, "Why don't we just make everything faster?" and "Can't we use cheaper materials?" I'd explain why those ideas wouldn't work. Faster production means more defects. Cheaper materials mean failed parts and lost clients. Brandon would nod like he understood, then suggest the same thing a week later. Then came the announcement. George called me into his office on a Monday morning. Brandon was there too, grinning. "Samantha, I wanted you to hear this from me first. I'm promoting Brandon to operations manager." My stomach dropped. "What about my position?" "You'll be transitioning to senior operations consultant. Same pay, but you'll focus on strategic planning while Brandon handles day-to-day operations." "George, Brandon doesn't know how to handle day-to-day operations. He's been here 6 months and barely understands the basics." "George, Brandon doesn't know how to handle day-to-day operations. He's been here 6 months and barely understands the basics." "He's been learning from the best, you, and he'll still have you to consult with. This is a growth opportunity for him." "And what about me? I've been running operations for 9 years. You're demoting me for someone with 6 months' experience?" Samantha, Brandon is family. I want to give him opportunities I didn't have at his age. I need you to support this transition. You're asking me to train my replacement, someone unqualified. I'm asking you to be a team player. Brandon finally spoke up. Samantha, I know you've done great work, but maybe it's time for some new energy in this role. Fresh ideas, you know? I looked at George. Is this final? It is. I stood up. Then I resign, effective 2 weeks from today. George blinked. Samantha, don't be hasty. I'm not being hasty. I'm being realistic. You're replacing me with someone unqualified because he's your nephew. I won't stay and watch operations collapse while pretending it's fine. You're overreacting. We'll see. I walked out. The next 2 weeks were surreal. George kept trying to convince me to stay on as consultant. I refused. Samantha, at least help with the transition. Document your processes. I've been documenting processes for 9 years. Everything Brandon needs is in the operations manual. He just needs to read it. You know he works better with hands-on learning. Then he should have paid attention during the 6 months I tried to train him. My colleagues were devastated. Carlos Mendez, our plant manager, pulled me aside. Samantha, you can't leave. This place will fall apart. I know, but I can't stay and watch George prioritize nepotism over competence. What about us, the people who work here? Carlos, you're good at your job. Start looking for other opportunities. This isn't going to end well. Olivia Lee from Quality Control was more direct. Brandon's going to destroy this company, isn't he? Probably. How long do you think we have? 3 months, maybe 4 if they're lucky. I spent my final 2 weeks at Riverside creating the most comprehensive transition documentation imaginable. Not because I wanted to help Brandon, but because I cared about the 150 people who'd still be working there after I left. I documented every critical supplier relationship, every client's specific requirements, every process quirk that kept production running smoothly. I even created a troubleshooting guide for the most common problems. On my last day, I handed the 200-page operations manual to Brandon. He didn't even open it. Thanks, Samantha. I'm sure I'll figure things out. Read the manual, Brandon, especially the section on supplier management and the client requirement specifications. Yeah, definitely. Good luck with whatever you do next. He hadn't listened to anything I'd said in 6 months. I had no reason to believe he'd start now. I walked out of Riverside Manufacturing for the last time, carrying a box of personal items and 9 years of expertise they were about to realize they couldn't replace. The first week after I left, Carlos texted me. Brandon just agreed to a production schedule that's physically impossible. We're going to miss the Hendrix deadline. Week 2. He changed suppliers for the titanium components without checking quality certifications. Olivia's freaking out. Week 3. First batch of parts failed quality control. Defect rate is 15%. Brandon told QC to just pass them anyway. I didn't respond to most of these messages. I wasn't working there anymore. Not my problem. But I did warn Carlos. Document everything. When this falls apart, you'll want proof you raised concerns. By week 5, I got a LinkedIn message from Dave Hendricks, Riverside's biggest client. Samantha, what happened? Our last shipment was 3 weeks late and half the parts were defective. This has never happened before. Are you still with Riverside? I left 2 months ago, Dave. I suggest you speak with their operations team about quality concerns. I tried. Some kid named Brandon told me delays happen and hung up on me. Samantha, is Riverside going under? I need to know if I should find another supplier. I can't speak for Riverside's future, but if you need alternative suppliers, I can send you some contacts. Please do. And Samantha, if you land somewhere else, let me know. I'd rather work with you than Riverside at this point. That conversation happened 4 more times with 4 other clients over the next month. Meanwhile, I'd been job hunting. I had interviews with 3 manufacturing companies. All of them were excited about my experience and track record, but I didn't accept any offers yet. Something told me to wait. Month 3. Disaster report. Month 3 after leaving Riverside, I got a call from Olivia. Samantha, it's a disaster. Production is down 60%. We've lost Hendricks, Morrison Industries, Patterson Manufacturing, and Steelworks Supply. Brandon keeps making decisions that make everything worse. George is panicking. What's Brandon doing? He switched to the cheapest suppliers for everything. Quality's terrible. He fired 2 shift supervisors for questioning his authority. He changed production schedules without understanding capacity constraints. We're drowning. What's George saying? He's finally realizing Brandon has no idea what he's doing, but he won't admit he made a mistake. He keeps saying they just need time to work through temporary challenges. How much longer can they survive at this rate? Weeks, maybe. The board is talking about replacing George. Clients are terminating contracts. Employees are quitting. Samantha, it's bad. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Samantha Reed, this is George Mitchell. Do you have a few minutes to talk? I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hello, George. Samantha, how are you? His voice sounded strained. I'm well, considering several job offers, actually. That's good. Samantha, I'll be direct. Riverside needs help. We're experiencing significant operational challenges. I was hoping you might be willing to come back and consult. No. Samantha, please just hear me out. George, you replaced me with your unqualified nephew despite my 9 years of excellent performance. You chose nepotism over competence. Now you're dealing with the consequences. I'm not interested in cleaning up Brandon's mess. I understand you're angry. I'm not angry. I'm vindicated. I told you this would happen. You didn't listen. Why would I come back? Silence on the line. Then, what would it take? I thought about that question for a long moment. What would it take? Full operations director position. Not manager, director. Double my previous salary. Complete authority over hiring and firing. Brandon removed from all operational responsibilities. And a 3-year contract guaranteeing my position regardless of family politics. Samantha, that's what it costs to fix what you broke, George. Take it or leave it. I need to discuss this with the board. You have 48 hours. After that, I'm accepting one of the other offers I have. He called back in 36 hours. The board approved everything. When can you start? I'll need to see the contract first. And George, one more thing. I want a public announcement to all employees and clients explaining exactly what happened. That I left because I was replaced by someone unqualified, that the company suffered as a result, and that I'm returning in a leadership role to rebuild operations. That's humiliating. Yes, it is. But it's also the truth. And if you want me to fix this, we're going to be honest about what caused the problem. Nepotism has consequences. Your employees and clients deserve to know you understand that. Another long pause. Fine. The contract arrived the next day. Everything I'd demanded, in writing, reviewed by an attorney friend who confirmed it was solid. I signed it. 1 week later, I walked back into Riverside Manufacturing as operations director. The employee reaction was electric. People literally applauded when I arrived. Carlos hugged me. Olivia had tears in her eyes. You came back. I came back, and we have a lot of work to do. George held the promised all-hands meeting that afternoon. He stood in front of 150 employees and read the statement I'd written. 3 months ago, I made a serious error in judgment. I replaced Samantha Reed, our highly qualified operations manager, with my nephew Brandon Mitchell, who lacked the experience and skills for the role. This decision was based on family loyalty rather than competence, and it nearly destroyed this company. We lost major clients, production collapsed, and we failed to deliver on our commitments. I take full responsibility for this failure. Samantha has agreed to return as operations director with full authority to rebuild our operations. I've committed to the board and to all of you that family relationships will never again supersede qualifications in hiring and promotion decisions. It was brutal to watch. George's voice shook. Several board members were in attendance, making sure he followed through. Brandon wasn't there. He'd already been transitioned to a different role, which meant he was working in the marketing department with no management authority and probably looking for a job elsewhere. After the meeting, George approached me privately. That was humiliating. Yes, but necessary. Your employees needed to hear you acknowledge the mistake. So did your clients. Will you be able to fix this? That depends on whether you let me do my job without interference. You have complete authority. The board made that very clear. Then yes, I can fix this, but it's going to take time, money, and some difficult decisions. Over the next month, I worked 16-hour days rebuilding what Brandon had destroyed. I fired the incompetent suppliers he'd hired and rebuilt relationships with our reliable partners. I personally called every client we'd lost and explained the situation. 4 of them agreed to give us another chance. I rehired one of the shift supervisors Brandon had fired. I implemented new quality control measures. I restructured production schedules to actually match our capacity. Most importantly, I rebuilt trust with employees, with suppliers, with clients. It wasn't easy. Brandon had done tremendous damage in just 3 months, but gradually things improved. By month 2, our on-time delivery rate was back to 70%. By month 3, 85%. By month 6, we were back to 95%. We regained 3 of the 4 lost clients. We brought in 2 new ones who'd heard about our turnaround. Production stabilized, quality improved, employee morale recovered. George sent me an email after the 6-month mark. Samantha, the board wanted me to thank you. You saved this company. I'm sorry it took nearly losing everything for me to realize what we had. I didn't respond. The results spoke for themselves. 1 year later, 1 year after returning to Riverside, I'm not just operations director. I'm being considered for COO. The company is thriving again. We've exceeded our previous performance metrics. We've won back all our lost clients and added 6 new ones. Our reputation in the industry is stronger than ever, not despite the near collapse, but because we were transparent about what happened and fixed it. My salary is more than double what I made before. My 3-year contract guarantees job security regardless of George's family dynamics, and I have real authority to run operations without interference. Ethan's thriving too. The salary increase meant I could afford better after-school care and reduce my stress level significantly. We took a real vacation last summer, first time in years. Carlos is now Assistant Operations Director. He earned it by keeping things from completely falling apart during Brandon's disaster tenure. Olivia runs quality control with expanded authority. The team is strong. As for Brandon, he lasted 3 months in marketing before quietly leaving the company. Last I heard, he's working for a friend's startup doing something vague with social media. His LinkedIn still lists him as former operations manager at Riverside Manufacturing Co. I heard through the grapevine that he tells people he grew the department before pursuing other opportunities. The delusion is impressive. George and I have a professional relationship now, cordial but not warm. He knows I saved his company. I know he almost destroyed it. That knowledge sits between us in every interaction. But here's what matters. George implemented real changes. The board now requires documented qualifications for all management positions. Family members can work at Riverside, but they have to meet the same standards as everyone else and can't supervise in departments where conflicts of interest exist. Brandon's failure created better policies for everyone. The industry knows what happened. George's public acknowledgement meant the story spread, but instead of damaging Riverside's reputation permanently, it actually enhanced it. We became the company that admitted mistakes, fixed them, and came back stronger. Several industry publications wrote about our turnaround. I was interviewed for a piece in Manufacturing Today about recovering from leadership failures. The article quoted me, "Nepotism is expensive. It costs you talent, clients, and credibility. The only way to recover is to prioritize competence over comfort. That quote got shared widely in business circles. I've been contacted by 3 companies asking if I'd consider leadership positions. One offered a COO role at a larger firm with even higher pay. I declined. I'm staying at Riverside, not because I owe George anything, I don't, but because I built something here. This is my operation, these are my people, and I'm not walking away from what I created twice. Plus, my contract guarantees that if George ever tries to replace me with another unqualified relative, I get a severance package worth 2 years' salary. He'd be an idiot to try, and even George isn't that big of an idiot. Anymore. People ask if I enjoyed watching Brandon fail, if I felt vindicated when the company collapsed. I didn't enjoy it. Good people almost lost their jobs because of George's nepotism. Clients were affected. Employees suffered. There's nothing enjoyable about that. But was I vindicated? Absolutely. I told George that replacing me with Brandon would be a disaster. He didn't listen. He chose family loyalty over 9 years of proven performance. The disaster happened exactly as I predicted. Production collapsed, clients left, the company nearly failed, and then George had to beg me to come back and fix it. That's not revenge. That's consequences. Here's what I learned. Know your worth. When someone tells you you're replaceable, believe them and leave. Don't stay hoping they'll realize your value. They won't. Not until they've replaced you with someone incompetent and watched everything fall apart. But also be prepared. Document your work. Build your reputation outside your current company. Maintain relationships with clients and colleagues. When you leave, make sure the industry knows what you're capable of. Because here's the truth about nepotism. It almost always fails. The unqualified relative will eventually be exposed. The question is whether you'll be around to see it, and whether you'll be in a position to benefit from it. I left when George chose nepotism. I built my reputation. I kept my options open. When Riverside collapsed, I was the solution they needed, but I made them pay for that solution, literally and figuratively. Double salary, director title, public acknowledgement of the mistake, complete operational authority. George replaced me with his nephew to give Brandon an opportunity. Instead, he gave me leverage, and when he came back begging, I used it. Brandon thought he deserved my job because of his last name. He learned that last names don't run manufacturing operations. Competence does. George thought family loyalty was more important than proven performance. He learned that lesson costs about $4 million in lost revenue. I knew my worth. I left. I waited. I came back on my terms. Sometimes the best revenge is being so good at your job that they can't function without you, and then making them admit it publicly. I was right. The arbitration award didn't just give me financial security. It gave me power, leverage, freedom, the ability to work on my terms instead of someone else's. Victor tried to time my termination to steal compensation I'd earned over 10 years. Instead, his timing error cost Titanium millions and destroyed his reputation. The contract said my compensation vests on my 10-year anniversary. He fired me the day before the calendar date, but my anniversary occurred at 9 a.m. when I was hired, and I was still employed at that moment. 1 day, 15 hours, that's what he lost on. Sometimes success isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about reading the contract more carefully than the other guy. Victor learned that lesson the expensive way. I learned to stand that standing up for yourself is worth it, even when, especially when, they try to take everything at the last moment. My 10-year retention bonus was supposed to reward loyalty. Instead, it rewarded reading the fine print and having the courage to fight when someone tried to cheat me. Best $10 million I ever earned.